Welcome to Serenity and Fire, the podcast where wellness meets grit. I'm your host, Krista, founder of Panacea Luxury Spa Boutique. Join me as we dive into the intriguing world of biohacking, clean living, cutting-edge spa trends, and the hustle, grind, and grit of entrepreneurship. From my personal battles with weight management and infertility, through a 30-year struggle to create and launch my dream business, to building a sanctuary for those who have been touched by cancer, I'm here to share real talk, inspire big dreams, and spark a passion for holistic living inside each and every one of you. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Serenity and Fire. Over the last couple of weeks, I started this little mini business masterclass series for you where we've talked about networking and the importance of that in your business. We also talked about interviewing for the right hires, but then also what happens when you make the right hire and then later something changes and that highly valued employee then unfortunately does something that forces you to have to let them go within the organization. Really tough decisions. Well, today I'm going to talk about something that has been so heavy on my mind and my heart for the last few months. And that is the decision to close down one of my businesses. And I think closing a business is maybe one of the most misunderstood decisions in entrepreneurship, because from the outside, it can look like failure, or even to you internally, you feel like everyone on the outside looks at it as failure. But from the inside, it can actually be one of the most strategic moves that you can ever possibly make. And we see this all the time in great entrepreneurs. You know, in order to have big, successful companies, sometimes making those tough decisions to close other businesses is what makes those other businesses even more successful. So I recently made the decision to close my Deka Lash franchise location here in Grandview. And what's interesting is that decision was initially highly emotional. I was very much not wanting to go down this path. I had been fighting for the last couple of years to really keep this business alive and keep building that business. But unfortunately, when I came into that business, it was under the auspice of it being a franchise that could run without the business owner present for the most part. And what I found out once I got into it was that was definitely not the case. The business definitely needs its owner there in order to be successful. And that's something that I really kind of knew all along, and that I share with people all of the time when they ask me like one thing about business that most people don't know. And that is that when you build a business, you have to be in the business. You have to be involved. You have to be engaged. You have to be working in it. You cannot just sit back, kick your heels up on the table and expect the money to flow in and never be part of the business. Like, that is just definitely not the case. And unfortunately, with my Deka Lash business, even though it was very much promoted that way, that became an unrealized reality very quickly. I tried everything I could to bring someone in to run the business for me in my absence, because, Panacea is my dream, and that's really where I spend all of my time and my focus and my energy. When I opened Deka Lash, we had not yet opened Panacea. So Deka Lash really was an opportunity for me to get my foot into the beauty industry, to learn about POS systems and hiring in this industry. I really learned a lot, and the business definitely served its purpose for me. And I loved and was very passionate about that business. And I'm so, so grateful for all of the clients that we built and the relationships that we built out of that business, the things that I learned and taught myself. I mean, I learned how to do lash extensions from top to bottom and trained all of my lash artists until my most recent team. My manager actually trained them, but being able to do that, was a huge accomplishment. And once I made the decision to launch Panacea, I hired a manager and had hoped that the manager would be able to grow the business in the ways that I had grown the business. But unfortunately, that did not happen. And as Panacea continued to grow and, quite frankly, explode, and now we're pursuing multiple locations, and we just have so much exciting stuff going on, and very, very grateful for the business to have been received as well as it has been by the community. And it's exciting for me to watch this little baby of mine grow into the blossoming business that it has. And it's also where I want to spend my time and my energy and my resources and my focus. And so I had to make some really tough decisions about my Deka Lash business, which either required me to be there on a full-time basis to make it run successfully, or make the decision to close it down, because quite frankly, the industry has also changed a lot, and being in a business that's singularly focused in one key area is probably not the best idea for a business. It was one of the things that attracted me so much to Deka Lash, because when it comes to lash extensions, it's such a specific skill set, and you have to be very focused, and you have to be doing lashes at least 20 to 25 hours a week in order to stay really proficient in it. So I loved that that was our core focus. And when we first launched the business, the industry was hot. I mean, it was one of the fastest growing sectors in the beauty industry. So we were doing really well in the beginning, and it made sense. But that industry has changed a lot over the last 7 years. And now there's lots of alternatives, and it's really tough to get new clients in the door because a lot of people are doing lashes on their own at home, or they found cheaper alternatives. And so all of those things had to come into my decision about what I wanted to do moving forward. And then I lost a lash artist in January, and that took us from 3 lash artists down to 2 lash artists. And quite frankly, I had to decide if I had the time to invest in training at least 2 new lash artists in order to keep the business running successfully, or if we had the financial wherewithal to continue to float the business, because quite frankly, the business was not making any money over the last couple of years. So my Panacea business was actually paying to keep that business afloat. And so I finally got to the point where I was like, I need to do a serious investigation of our financials, figure out if this even makes sense for us to continue to stay open. I was very open with my team, and I did share with them the state of our financials and the state of the industry. And I also let them know that, you know, as long as the business continued to break even or have losses that were less than what my loan payment cost, then it made sense for me to keep the business going, because first and foremost, I wanted to continue to take care of our clients. And we had members that have been with us since almost the very beginning. So really, really great relationships and loyal clients. And I didn't want to let them down. But also my employees. At that point, I had 2 lash artists remaining. They've been with me for a couple of years. They actually started with me at Panacea, and I moved them over into this position, and they've become such incredible lash artists over the last 2 years. And, you know, I didn't want them to be in a bind. And these are the kinds of things that as a business owner, you lose sleep over at night. And these were decisions that I was struggling with for months. And then my financials came in for year 2025. And my P&L actually showed an $11,000 loss. Not great, but also not catastrophic. In fact, it was less than what my annual SBA loan payment was costing me. So on paper, I felt like I could justify continuing to keep it open. But here's the problem. And this is what kind of slapped me in the face. It was a reality that I really did not think about prior to this particular moment. And that was that the P&L doesn't actually tell you the full story. And I will tell you, I am such a huge advocate of business owners knowing every single thing about their financials from top to bottom. I'm also, and this is a topic we'll get into in another podcast, but your financials should be broken down to the finitest of detail, so you can see where every expenditure in your business is going in and out, when expenses are changing or growing, why they're changing or growing. Your P&L or your profit and loss statement tells you so much about the health of your business. And if you don't know it or understand it, that's one of the first things that you should get locked down and under control. That said, with all that information, in this instance especially, the P&L was not telling the full story. So I reached out to my bookkeeper and I had said, hey, can you help me understand something? And that was, I knew I had put about $53,000 of my own money into the business that year, and we were showing only an $11,000 loss, but I was not showing a $41,000 or $42,000 cash positive in my business bank account. So I asked her to run a cash flow analysis, and that's when everything changed, because the real loss after looking at those numbers was actually closer to about $42,000, somewhere between $32,000 and $42,000. And that number fluctuates a little bit based on where your clearing balance is, or in other words, like when your credit card bills have charged and when you've actually paid them off. So that does fluctuate the numbers just a little bit, but it's really important to be looking at that cash flow analysis too, especially when you're in a situation where you know you're putting money into the company and you're experiencing losses on your P&L. So $42,000 versus $11,000, that's a huge difference, especially when my loan payment plus interest is a little more closer to $27,000 a year. So that was the kind of nail in the coffin for me, where I had to make this critical decision, because now we really crossed that threshold. We're no longer losing manageable money. We were losing more money than what it would cost me to just simply pay the loan off annually without all of these other expenses. And this is where I want people to really pay attention, because profit and cash flow are not the same thing. Your P&L might tell you one story, but your cash flow analysis is going to tell you the truth. So at that point, the decision for me became really clear, because keeping the business open was not strategic, it wasn't responsible, and it wasn't aligned with my growth strategy for my entire business portfolio. But closing it was. And it has been a very difficult and bittersweet decision for me. But once the financial numbers became that clear to me, it was no longer a difficult decision. And this is where the shift really happens, because closing a business is not failure. And I had to convince myself of that and make myself understand that this is an important reallocation of resources to help protect my capital, my energy, my focus, and really my ultimate dream, so that I could reinvest into the things that actually are really working, and quite frankly, into a business that I have much more control over. So that means for me, doubling down on Panacea Luxury Spa Boutique, a business that's profitable, scalable, and aligned with my long-term vision. And that is really fulfilling my wildest dreams. And equally important was making sure the transition was handled well, supporting my team, communicating with my clients, and exiting in a way that protects me, the brand, the franchise, my clients, and my team members. Because at the end of the day, growth is not just about what you build, it's about what you're willing to release. And so I put together a strategic plan to make sure that all of those things were taken care of. I personally reached out to every single one of our members to thank them so much for their business and their business loyalty, because it has meant so much to me and my team. Made sure they understand exactly where their membership stood, that they had plenty of time to use up their credits. I staged our closing so that we stopped all membership billing in advance, and that we gave all of our clients enough time to use up their credits. I did have a couple of instances where clients had too many credits to be able to use before we closed, so I was able to convert those into gift cards at Panacea, and they were elated by that, which made me super happy, because hopefully that means I can bring them over as clients into Panacea if they're not already there. And then with my team, I would say that in addition to the clients, that was the biggest thing that I was worried about. I needed to be 100% certain that they would be taken care of. And so I worked really hard to build some contingency plans for them. I had opportunities for them to come back over to Panacea. I introduced them to some contacts in the industry that I know who have booth rentals, and just really did everything I possibly could to help make sure that they were set up for success. And I hope that in a couple of years from now, if they look back on this moment, they will say that they were so grateful for this opportunity, and that it helped push them into something that they never thought that they could do on their own, but that they're doing successfully. So sometimes the most powerful moves that you can make in your business are letting go of things. And this is something that has been a really great lesson for me, going through a very, very difficult decision, and one that I'm really excited about, because even though it's a closing of one chapter, it's the evolvement and the development of new chapters for Panacea. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this mini business masterclass series and that you gain some insightful inspiration. And if you have things that you want to share with me or you've been through your own difficult business decisions, please share with me, because if you have been, you know that it's nice to hear from other people that they've been through the same thing. And I'd love to hear from you. So as always, if you'd like to continue to support the show, be sure that you follow us on social and leave us a review, and be sure to tune in to our other episodes and share them with those you love most. And as always, continue to keep balancing serenity with fire. I'm Krista Guigeni, and I'll talk with you more in our next episode. At Panacea Luxury Spa Boutique, we don't just offer traditional spa treatments. We create rituals that relax your mind, restore your health, and rejuvenate your spirit. From biohacking technologies to advanced oncology-trained care, everything we do is designed to help you heal on the deepest level with clean, holistic therapies, products, and amenities that are second to none. And right now, you can experience two of my favorites, our whole body LED light bed or hyperbaric oxygen therapies. And as a thank you for listening, you'll get 10% off your first session when you use the code Serenity10 at booking. What is your panacea? Let us help you find it, because true wellness isn't a quick fix, it's a ritual.